Pisces, welcome to your weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for May 16th to the 22nd of 2016. I'm Athen, and this is for Sidereal. If you are new to the channel, be sure to check out the link because the signs are different. So Pisces, this week we have a full moon, which is going to be right on the cusp between your 8th house and your 9th house, right between Libra and Scorpio. So this is an illuminating time in terms of these two areas, one of which the 8th house, which is about what really matters in life, what's really meaningful. How can you have that deep connection with self, which leads to deep connections in your relationships and externally, right? How can you also release yourself from perhaps any type of unhealthy bonds, unhealthy attachments in life? And so this is going to be, as the week unfolds, specifically around the weekend, this illumination of this 8th house, so that you can do this sort of status check. How are things going here in terms of the deeper side of life? You know, and specifically, if over the past 6 months, there has been some things you've been cultivating involving either intimacy or shared resources or that kind of stuff, then it's about doing that status check with those things and continuing to cultivate that as well. But at the very least, all of you should have this awareness of what, you know, truly matters in life and seeing that, accessing that, and continuing to move that forward. Now, the other area is your 9th house, which is more of the expansive side of things, which has been a bit serious lately because you've had Saturn in your 9th house for about the past year. And it's very reflective. You know, where's your life path going? What's possible in life? You know, these kinds of things. There's a little bit more of this reflective nature. And so there is an awareness now in terms of perhaps your life direction, your life path, or maybe where you can tap into a bit of that adventurous spirit in life. Right, and there's this awareness of your worldview, of your philosophy, of your outlook of things. So it's good to be flexible with all of this because this full moon is going to be conjoining up to that Mars, which is suggesting that it is this time of, you know, seeing things in a new light, maybe experimenting, trying new philosophies, spiritual studies, or whatever it might be, and maybe even reflecting too in terms of, you know, again, where you can see those possibilities, right? But it's good to be adaptive and flexible in the process. So that's the high point, and that's going to be over the weekend. Now this week we do have some aspects approaching up to that, one of which is very important, involving your ruler Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be squaring up to Saturn. So there is this constructive approach. In fact, this is nothing new. This has been going on since August of last year, and then recently here back in March. So this is the constructive expansion and slow and steady expansion. And I think that's been specifically involving that spirit, those future possibilities, right? That adventurousness, or maybe with anything you might be working on with philosophy and that kind of, you know, study or university, if you've been working with that kind of seriously or taking responsibilities with that. Jupiter here is suggesting that, yeah, it's a time of hard work, but there's also possibilities. There's also this openness, all right? There's also these opportunities even perhaps, but it's about the long-term picture, right? The long-term gains versus the short-term gains, which is that Saturn. And that's really the, you know, dichotomy, the interesting split between Saturn and Jupiter, these polarities. You know, Saturn is about the limitation, but Jupiter is about the expansion. And when you combine these two things, it becomes very constructive. You know, that's when we can really build those possibilities and turn them into something real. So I think that's very much involving your 9th house of expansion, of travel, of future things, philosophy, etc. But also your 6th house. And this is the house of your work. This is the house of your routines, your regimens, anything you do on a daily level, which is where Jupiter is, very expansive. So there should be plenty of opportunities, I think, to learn more about it at the very least. Right, to learn more about your work or your craft or whatever it is, and maybe even see some opportunities to expand there in that direction as well. And it's really good for you to be putting energy here because the North Node has recently gone into Leo and will be here for the next 2 years for you to cultivate your work, your craft, and your routines. So Saturn squaring up to that, saying, but with patience, right? These things take time, and there's this steady way of expanding this everyday sphere of your life. So that's going to be strongest next week because it's going to go exact next Thursday. But it is going to be this backdrop because it is a very slow moving aspect. Now, as we go into that full moon, which is on Saturday, here on Thursday, we do have Venus shifting into Taurus. So there is this new focus shift. In fact, this went into play the previous weekend, which is when the sun shifted into your third house. So the third house is about communication. It's about learning. And I think there's a lot of energy to be gained through learning. Maybe it's through reading or writing or communicating, exchanging with others, right? Getting into the mental and practical side of life. So that's a great source of energy, great source of prana. And I think this week with Venus shifting into the third, there is this enjoyment that can be had perhaps through connecting with the more, mental, intellectual, stimulating kind of activities, whether it's reading a book, taking a course, communicating, sharing with others, that kind of thing. So this is going to be the area of the new moon in 2 weeks. So this is a developing area, but I think anything involving learning, reading, writing, sharing is a great source of both enjoyment and that energy. Now that, like I said, full moon will be on Saturday, and that's going to be this opposition too. It's going to be conjoining up to this Mars retrograde. So like I said, there's a lot of things being reflected, I think, in terms of your future possibilities, your life path, your life direction. But it's all about balancing that with the practical, because all these full moons, and especially when they're involving other planets in opposition like this, Mars and Venus, it's about balancing these two areas. So this is balancing the possible with the practical, saying that those possibilities are practical, right? Or at least the real possibilities are the ones that are practical, right? And vice versa. The things in life that are practical, that we're involved with on an everyday level, do need a dose of that, not just mental energy, but the expansive energy in order to see new possibilities, to see new things, right? Have that open-mindedness. So I think that's a good way of sort of balancing this generally and seeing that they're really one and the same, that we can cultivate these possibilities in this practical sense with this grounded actual implementation, and vice versa. We can continue to work with and cultivate this understanding and these everyday experiences in a way that is a bit expansive and open-minded, right? And that's a lot like what has already been going on because of the retrograde Mars and all of this. But now it's the full moon, which is an illuminating time and awareness of where you can continue to cultivate these possibilities, as well as, again, what really matters in life with that 8th house. Now, one thing I want to mention too is that on Sunday, Mercury is going to go direct. And so this is in your 2nd house. And I think a lot of the stuff that you have been re-examining or reworking for the past few weeks relating to either your finances, relating to your self-reliance, your material security, these kinds of matters, there is this shift. And I think Sunday, maybe some information comes to light or something goes into a new direction. All right, that's mostly going into next week in terms of where you can start to implement, I think, a lot of the stuff that you have learned about the material side of life or reworked or redid, and maybe even learned about yourself in terms of your self-worth. What's your time worth, what's your energy worth, these kinds of things, and where you can continue to cultivate those values in life. All right, so Pisces, I wish you guys a fantastic week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.